Hi, here's Michael Leander. I'm in Singapore where the Adtech Asean takes place, one of the largest digital marketing conferences in the world. And as always, at large important conferences, you find a lot of very knowledgeable people. So I, as usual, did a bit of research to find out who are the so-called movers and shakers, who really know what's going on, who's based in Singapore and who has a broad interest and knowledge about the rest of the Asian Pacific market. And I found him, and his name is Simon Kemp. That's K-E-M-P if you want to go on LinkedIn and check him out. Now, I advise you to take 10 minutes now and listen to what he has to say, because amongst other things, you can learn about some really, really interesting and free research. He's also going to give you some tips about things like social listening and how that should be approached, and also want to mention that he's talking about how Asia perceives social listening and invest in that and compare that to Europe. So listen up now for the next 10 minutes. Ask your questions in the comment field below, and I'll see you soon again. Take care. Simon, thank you for taking time out. Why don't you start by introducing yourself to the viewers?
Okay. Hello everyone, I am Simon Kemp, Regional Managing Partner for Asia for We Are Social. We Are Social is a conversation agency based in 10 countries around the world. Look after a large number of global clients from Adidas, Lenovo, Intel, and a large number of other great brands as well.
Excellent. So let me ask you, you have a background from Europe, and now you've been in Singapore for nearly 3 years, is that correct?
Actually been here for 8 years.
Oh wow.
We launched We Are Social 3 years ago, but I moved to Singapore quite a long time before that. But yeah, originally Scottish. It was too cold, too wet in Scotland, so I escaped as early as I could. Spent some time in France and in Italy, then spent some time in London, then came to Bangkok, and then obviously for the last 8 years, as I said, in Singapore.
Wow, so you've been around. So if you were to describe things like listening and compare the market as you see it in Asia to Europe, what's the difference?
I think it's not massively different. Interestingly, I think that obviously there is a slight difference in terms of the platforms that people use. So in terms of collecting the data, it can be slightly more tricky in Asia than it would be in Europe. And then there is also the challenge of the languages, anything that isn't Roman character based, so things like Chinese, Thai, whatever else, can be quite difficult to find tools that capture especially sentiment and stuff like that. But in reality, the process that you go through is the same. What you're looking to do is to find the conversations that matter, and then to analyse those to find genuine insights that will help you to understand the motivations of the audiences that you want to engage with, and then build a meaningful conversation around that. So in actual fact, the process that we will go through is very, very similar, just that perhaps sometimes the tools are slightly different.
Interesting, but what do you see in terms of the perception of return on marketing investment on something like listening and then reacting, and then maybe having a, let's say a 24/7 setup where a brand is listening 24/7 and also say replying within an hour to all, whatever it may be?
Yeah, it's still not at the level I would like it to be. I think that is something that most marketers recognise as well. I think whenever we speak to people on the client side and we discuss the opportunities related to listening, they understand the benefit of it. I think they agree that it's worthwhile to do, but given the budget constraints that many of the marketers face here, it's difficult to justify against all the other things that they have to do. That may come down to the way that large corporate brands treat Asia. I think it's still a little bit of an unfortunate budgetary decision that you'll have budgets for North America, budgets for individual countries in Europe, and then budgets for APAC. And if you check the stats, it's half or more of the world's population living in Asia, and somehow the marketing teams have to split that up amongst themselves. It's broken. So I think that the biggest challenge that the marketers face here is a lack of resource to be able to do all the things that will add value. Having said that as well, there is a certain degree of fear in the unknown, and I don't think that there are enough case studies in Asia yet that demonstrate the tangible ROI value from listening. That's something that we're working to fix, but at the same time I think we need more brands that are doing it to shout about the successes that they've had. I think that many marketers in Asia are a lot more modest than their Western counterparts, not quite as comfortable in shouting about the wonderful things that they've done. I would definitely encourage Asian marketers to be more vocal about the things that they've done well, also to discuss some of the challenges that they've had, and then that ideally would help us as an industry to move that whole conversation forward. And ideally to then help everybody else to benefit from the value that listening can bring as well.
No, that's excellent input. I know you have some research coming out pretty soon. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
We've got research coming out all the time, ironically. So we make a large amount of our research available for free. A lot of that is curated statistics, so 100 plus countries around the world, the social, digital and mobile series of reports, which you'll find on our blog. Quick plug, wearesocial.sg. But we also have some very interesting research that we've been working with on the World Federation of Advertisers on. Something that we'll be presenting here at Adtech tomorrow. And this is some research into what the best practice marketing of the future will look like. So a little bit of a sneak preview into that. We spoke to more than 100 of the world's top marketing practitioners around the world, agency and client side, to find out what they think best practice marketing looks like and what makes it best practice in the first place. And they came back kind of sort of, if you aggregate all of the stuff that they came back with into its core essence, it breaks down into purpose, principles and participation. So purpose, I think many brands and many marketers have been talking about this quite a lot recently. I think it's one of those words that is becoming bastardized, which is dangerous. It's losing its value. But I think at the same time, if you look at purpose in the sense that what a brand does, why a brand exists, is more than just its products. A brand exists to achieve something and to make some kind of difference to the world. I think that's, if you nail purpose down to its absolute core, it's about what the brand does to make things better, and therefore it's not just about making better things. So a nice little sort of reflexive aphorism there, but that's the easiest way to remember it. Brands need to be making a difference if they're going to succeed long term. The principles piece is the new sort of vision that marketers have for brand values, which again were one of those great things that got completely bastardized. We had these annoying spreadsheets of different terms that we would collate into these annoying PowerPoint slides of we're dynamic and we have integrity, and it just didn't mean anything to anybody. So the principles piece is the new version of that, is how does our brand actually become a person? If that's not too much of a cliche. I know that it's one of those things that most people find very uncomfortable, but if a brand is to be truly engaging, it does need to have that personality and to reflect the principles. And then the final piece is the participation piece. I think that it's becoming more and more obvious in things like social media, but even beyond that, that a brand that involves its audience in the co-creation of value is much better placed to succeed, both in terms of engagement, but also in terms of creating actual value offerings that have meaning. And if you look at the extreme version of that, things like Kickstarter, things like Indiegogo, where brand owners, before the brand even exists, are reaching out to potential audience members and asking for their help in funding the brand, developing the brand, and making it come to life. And the passion that the consumer has for those kind of brands is so much more persuasive, and they're so much more eager to share that passion with their networks as well, that it feels it's a really obvious place for all brands to start exploring. How can we use our networks of people, and how can we use the brighter, broader world perhaps to bring value back into the brand? So it's not just about a brand out world. Brands need to become a lot more democratic, so creation of value by the people, of the people, for the people. I think that kind of piece of the findings, if you like, was the one that inspired me the most. When we started having that conversation with these practitioners, it became very clear that this is a vision of the world where marketing is no longer a dirty world, and where it's actually something that comes in and does that utopian thing of satisfying people's wants, needs and desires, to quote some great Kotler. But the reality is there now. If we use things like social media, listening to its true potential, we really can understand what people want. We can do the Steve Jobs thing of identifying the things that they want that they don't know that they want yet as well, if we're really good at analysing what they say. Bringing all that together and creating genuine mutual value so the brand succeeds, the audience gets what it wants, and in the best of all possible worlds, the world then becomes a better place as a result. So yeah, very excited about it, as you can probably tell.
Yeah, but that's wonderful. We'll put a link here somewhere on this page so people can find your blog and then read more about this research. I have a last question for you. And that question is, when you think about social media, and if you had to make a choice, would you choose to leverage social media and all of its platforms for customer acquisition, or would you choose to leverage it for customer retention?
Retention, no question there. I think you've got to, as a marketer, look at the mix out there, and conversations only really happen once you've met somebody, even if it's the first time you've met them. So I think from that perspective, the really, really exciting opportunity, if you use social media properly, is to have that ongoing conversation. Things like TV, print, outdoor, they're all really good at taking your name out to the world and doing that very first introduction. But as soon as you've made that introduction, social media should be there to actually convert the awareness into conversation, and as soon as you're into that conversation, it is a retention thing. I've made you aware of my brand, now I need to retain that interest, that desire, ideally the loyalty of action as well, and that's where social media adds value that no other channel can deliver, because it allows you to track that value add over time, bring the value back into the brand as well, and then to make that endure. So social media, definitely about the retention.
Excellent, thank you very much.
No worries.